friends, welcome to Miss DeBoer Reads. Today, you're gonna love the book I'm sharing. It's called Finding Winnie, and it's the true story of the world's most famous bear. Have you heard of Winnie the Pooh? You know, Pooh Bear and Piglet, Tigger. Those characters were developed by someone named A.A. Milne. And today we're going to find out there really was a bear, a live little tiny black bear named Winnie. I can't wait to share today's story. It is by Lindsay Mattick is the author, and it's illustrated by Sophie Blackall. Lindsay is a relative of A.A. Milne that we find out in the story, and her great-grandfather knew the real Winnie Bear. Can't wait to share today's story. Come join me.
The bird with the word. Today it's the words, carry on. You know, our Queen in Great Britain has a phrase called, keep calm and carry on. That means keep going forward, moving ahead. But in today's story, Finding Winnie, carry on means, can you carry on a story through many generations? Carry on means like, psst, pass it on. Let's think of that today as we hear Finding Winnie.
Finding Winnie, the true story of the world's most famous bear, by Lindsay Mattick, illustrated by Sophie Blackall. Notice it has a Caldecott Award winner. That means the illustrations and the story in this book are so good that it was award-winning. I know you're going to enjoy it. We're going to take a little sneak peek. So inside the cover, it says this: before Winnie the Pooh, there was a real bear named Winnie. In 1914, Harry Colburn, a veterinarian on his way to tend horses in World War I, followed his heart and rescued a baby bear. He named her Winnie after his hometown of Winnipeg, and he took the bear to war. Winnipeg is in Canada, which is just above Michigan. It's not actually too far away, up in Canada. Harry Colburn's real-life great-granddaughter tells the true story of a remarkable friendship and even a more remarkable journey from the fields of Canada to a convoy across the ocean to an army base in England, Great Britain, and finally to the London Zoo, where Winnie made another new friend, a real boy named Christopher Robin. Oh yeah, here's the remarkable true story of the bear who inspired Winnie the Pooh. Because Winnie the Pooh is a stuffed bear. And then I like to flip to the back to do the author and illustrator feature. Lindsay Mattick is the great-granddaughter of Captain Harry Colburn. She grew up thinking of Winnie the Pooh as her own great-grand bear. Get it? She has shared Winnie's story as a radio documentary, spearheaded an original exhibition, and traveled to the UK, United Kingdom, which is another word for Great Britain, to commemorate Harry and Winnie's experience in World War I. She lives with her family in Toronto, Canada. So she still lives in Canada. That's where her family's from. Sophie Blackall is a celebrated artist whose work has appeared in the best-selling Ivy and Bean series. Maybe you've read some of those. In multiple glorious award-winning picture books, such as this, as part of an international pro-literacy campaign with Save the Children, and on a renowned New York subway poster. So here we go. And you can even see some actual photos of this real bear. Let's get into the story of Finding Winnie. Could you tell me a story? Asked Cole. It's awfully late. It was long past dark and time to be asleep. What kind of story? You know, a true story. One about a bear? We cuddled up close. I'll do my best, I said. A very long time ago, about 100 years before you were born, there was a veterinarian who lived in Winnipeg. His name was Harry Colburn. A vegetarian? Said Cole. Bear doesn't like vegetables. A veterinarian. It means an animal doctor. I know that, Cole said. That's what I'm going to be, maybe, when I'm big. If a horse had the hiccups, or a cow had a cough, Harry knew how to make them feel just right. Harry's hands were never cold, even in Winnipeg, where winters are so frosty that icicles grow on the insides of your nose. That was just the kind of doctor he was. But a day came when Harry had to say goodbye to Winnipeg. There was a war far, far away, beyond the end of the country and on the other side of the ocean, and he was going to help. He would be caring for the soldiers' horses. Because back then, horses were more more useful than even cars back then. Many cars hadn't even been invented yet, and they were a luxury. So horses were what's needed, and they need a doctor for them, right? Harry rode east on a train full of other soldiers. He leaned his head against the window, watching the land scroll by, wondering what it would be like to be so far from home. The train rolled right through dinner and over the sunset and around 10 o'clock and into a nap and out the next day, until it stopped at a place called White River. Harry decided to stretch his legs. On the platform was a man on a bench with a baby. A baby? Said Cole, annoyed. Oh yeah, remember? Because the mom is telling this story. Did you get so into it that you forgot that it's like a little storytelling that's happening within the story? Yeah, we were just brought back into that, where the boy's like, a baby? A baby bear. A cub. Harry stopped. It's not every day that you see a bear cub at a train station. That bear has lost its mother, he thought, and that man must be the trapper that got her. What do trappers do? Asked Cole. It's what trappers don't do. They don't raise bears. Raise them? You know, I said, love them. Harry thought for a long time. Then he said to himself, there is something special about that bear. He felt inside his pocket and said, I shouldn't. He paced back and forth and said, I can't. Then his heart made up his mind, and he walked up to the trapper and said, I'll give you $20 for the bear. Is $20 a lot? Asked Cole. Back then, I said, even more than a lot, right? Because that was 100 years ago, over 100. Almost 200 years ago, so long ago. Captain Colburn, said the colonel on the train, as the bear sniffed at his knees, we are on a journey of thousands of miles heading into the thick of battle, and you propose to bring this most dangerous creature? Bear stood straight up on her hind legs as if to salute the colonel. The colonel stopped speaking at once, and then, in quite a different voice, he said, Oh, hello. The men of Harry's regiment squeezed by to have a look. I've decided to name her Winnipeg, Harry told them, so we'll never be far from home. Winnie for short. Do you think they'll say yes? They had a very long way to travel, and they had already gone 3 or 4 feet when Winnie grew hungry. What do bears eat? The men wondered. What don't they eat? Said Harry, right? He knows a lot about animals because he's a veterinarian. Vegetables, that's what they don't eat, Cole reminded me. Winnie ate vegetables, I said. She ate everything except onions. They brought her carrots and potatoes and apples and tomatoes and eggs and beans and bread and a tin of fish and some slop in a dish. But Winnie was still hungry. How about dessert? Said Harry, holding up a bottle of condensed milk. Taking the treat in her paws, Winnie lay on her back and hummed a happy song as she drank. The men roared. Harry and Winnie gathered with soldiers from all over Canada in the green fields of Valcartier. A whole city of tents had sprung up there. One was a hospital for horses, where Harry went to work. Winnie was in the army now. Harry taught her to stand up straight and hold her head high and turn this way and that, just so. Soon she was assigned her own post. Even the colonel agreed that Winnie was a remarkable bear. She might have been the best navigator in the whole army. If you hid something, she could find it. She could. What if it was farther away? And farther still? Remarkable, he cried. So they would hide things and they would say, go find it, and Winnie would. In the evenings, both of them were too tired to move. When Harry thought about Winnie and the voyage across the ocean, his head said, I shouldn't. His head said, I can't. But his heart made up his mind. I love this bear. Nobody had ever tried to float so many people and animals across the Atlantic Ocean before. 30 ships sailed together, carrying about 36,000 men and about 7,500 horses and about one bear named Winnie. When they finally arrived in England, the regiment went to training on the Salisbury Plain, where it rained and rained and rained. But Winnie didn't seem to mind. She was the mascot of the 2nd Canadian Infantry Brigade, and she attended her post with vigor. One day, Harry came running while she was doing her exercises in the tent. You'll bring the whole place down, he said with a laugh. She had grown, right? Look at how big Winnie's getting. It was winter when the order came. The time had come to fight. Winnie posed proudly with the men for pictures to send home to their families. Harry thought for a long time. His head argued one way and then the other. But his heart made up his mind. He's worried that Winnie, this bear, if they were to go into battle, what might happen, right? He went to Winnie and said in a serious way, There's somewhere we need to go. Winnie brushed the mud off her nose and nuzzled in close. Harry drove all the way to the big city. Here we are, said Harry, the London Zoo. Harry took a deep breath. Winnie, this is going to be your home for a while, he said. She tilted her head. We're shipping out to France, he explained. I have to take care of the horses at the front. She rested her big head against him. I know you want to come, but it's not safe. Winnie's head bowed. Harry's hands were warm as sunshine, as usual. There is something you must always remember, Harry said. It's the most important thing, really. Even if we're apart, I'll always love you. You'll always be my bear. Oh, it's true with people too, right? Is that the end? Oh yeah, we're back to Cole and his mom. Is that the end? Well, that's the end of Harry and Winnie's story, I said. But I don't want it to be over, said Cole. Sometimes, I said, you have to let one story end so the next one can begin. How do you know when that will happen? You don't, I said, which is why you should always carry on. Right? Carry on the stories, carry on your task, carry on what's the right thing to do. Once upon a time, there was a little boy with a stuffed bear. He'd had his bear ever since he was a baby, but somehow the boy had never found the right name for him. He tried Teddy and Edward and even Big Bear. One day, the boy went to visit the London Zoo with his father, and there was a bear, a real bear, on the terraces right there. Right away, the boy thought, there is something special about that bear. Her name was Winnie. They became friends. The boy was allowed to come right inside her enclosure to play. You see how this is such an unusual bear. A wild bear would not typically behave this way. So Winnie is extremely docile, almost domesticated, right? And he was allowed to go in there and play. This is amazing. Once the boy had found Winnie, he knew just what to call his stuffed bear. He named it Winnie the Pooh. And the boy was called Cole? Asked Cole. His name was Christopher Robin. Christopher Robin Milne. Christopher Robin would visit Winnie at the zoo, and then he would take his stuffed animal on all sorts of adventures in the wood behind his home. His father, Alan Alexander Milne, wrote books all about them. Yeah, look for this author, A.A. Milne. He wrote all the Winnie the Pooh stories and adventures. Some of my favorite lines come from Winnie the Pooh. How about you, right? How lucky I am to have known you. Oh, there's so many good things in those books. Look them up. Harry's Winnie became Winnie the Pooh, and there has never been a more beloved bear. But what about Harry? Cole asked. See, Mom is still telling the story. When Harry visited Winnie at the zoo, he saw how happy she was. She was being raised. She was truly loved. And that was all he had ever wanted from the moment they met at the train station in White River. So, after the war, Harry returned to Winnipeg and his life as an animal doctor. Before long, he was married and had a son named Fred. Fred had a daughter named Laureen, and Laureen had a daughter named Lindsay, which is me. And then I had a son. When I saw you, I thought, there is something special about this boy. So I named you after your great-great-grandfather, Captain Harry Colburn. I named you Cole. Aha! So the real bear is actually Cole's great-great-grandfather. How amazing. Over here you can see where the illustrator has drawn a family tree. You could try this at your house, where you might go all the way back to. So here's Harry. Harry was the soldier, the veterinarian, had a son named Fred. Fred had a daughter named Laureen. When Laureen grew up, she had a daughter named Lindsay. When Lindsay grew up, she had a son named Cole. And that's who's telling this story right now. That's me, said Cole. That's me, he said in a whisper. That's you. And that's Winnie? Yes, I said, that's Winnie. And it's all true? Sometimes the best stories are, I said. Cole's eyes grew big and he said nothing for a long time. Then he hugged his own bear close and let out a yawn that reached far away, and they both turned over and fell asleep. And at the back of this book, it says album because you might keep a photo album, right? Here's Harry as a young soldier. You can tell this photo is really old. It's even torn on the edge. And old photos used to kind of be stuck in these corner pages to post them in a book. Harry kept diaries throughout World War I. This was the diary from 1914, the first year of the war. Isn't that cool? A diary is like a journal, right? But it often has the dates in it so you can keep them like a calendar. The diary page from the day that Harry found Winnie, on August 24, 1914, he wrote, "Bought bear, $20. It's so cool that they have record of this. Over here, 3 soldiers with Winnie at her post. Winnie and Harry have what appears to be a laugh and a snack. Here's Harry and his fellow soldiers with their mascot, Winnie. Winnie's in the photo, just a little tiny bear. This picture of Winnie and Harry inspired the statues that now stand in Winnipeg and London. So if you ever have a chance to go to Canada and visit Winnipeg, there's a statue there. They unveiled it in 1992. This photo was taken of Winnie and Christopher Robin in 1925 at the zoo after they became friends. Christopher Robin's father, A.A. Milne, watches them play from above. This official animal record card shows that Winnie began her stay at the London Zoo on December 9, 1914. And then here's Lindsay and Cole in 2013. We knew there was something special about this boy. The true and remarkable story of Winnie, right? Finding Winnie. It's so lovely. And here's what we're invited to think of. Think of your family and generations that carry on, right? Carry on stories, carry on your work, carry on to goodness. Finding Winnie.